everybody, and welcome back to the People's Brief. I am your host, Lene Bini, and thank you for coming back to spend some more time with us. Now, I hope you've been having a wonderful week so far, but I've gathered you all here today to share some terrible news. I regret to inform you that these babies cannot read. I know, it's a crying shame. But before you get your panties in a bunch, I'm not talking about your baby, or all babies for that matter, but it's a lot. Educators are complaining that their 7th graders are reading at a 2nd grade reading level right now, today. That the new math is not only whooping parents' ass at home, but whooping their kids' ass right there in the schoolhouse. And whose fault is that? Well, that's a loaded question. Would you place blame on a global pandemic or Mother Nature giving us a warning smack upside the head for stripping your children of the opportunity to learn? Not me, Lord, or you, Mother Earth. I'm not finna tell either one of y'all how to do y'all job. But what I will say is, the general lack of preparedness and chronic devaluation of education for children in this country did leave our youth hanging when COVID-19 came rolling on in. Students face challenges with a sudden shift in the way information was distributed, access to technology, a lack of adult supervision skilled in the subjects they were studying. Parents face challenges with availability, whether they worked from home or were essential workers, whether they only had 1 kid or 57 of them. Teachers struggle to teach in an adequate fashion, unable to tend to the individual student needs in real time, keep students' attention, or even give students the grades they actually earned to signal to somebody, little Tommy don't know what 5 or apples is. And don't even get me started on the weird conservative attempts to get people to believe COVID wasn't real or that it would just blow over, and have local and state governments trying to force kids back into school with bullshit safety precautions. I know, I was there. That's why I gave them my 3-day notice. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. According to the Kids Count data book, in 2022, only 26% of 8th graders were at or above proficient in math. Less than a third of 4th graders, 32%, were at or above proficient in reading. But quiet as it's kept, those numbers are only 2 to 7 points behind the numbers that existed before the pandemic. So loud as it's kept, the babies not being able to read been a problem. The big kahuna is that 30% of all students, 14.7 million, were chronically absent, and that was nearly double pre-pandemic rates. And per usual, the Black kids bear the brunt of it. Just 74% of Black households had the necessary virtual learning tools in comparison to 89% of Asian households and 86% of white households. And Black and Hispanic students in 20 states experienced a sharper decline in test scores compared to their white counterparts. So if you ask me, the government left them in this hole, the government ought to be the one to pull them out. Or is it the government that wants them in the hole in the first place? Short answer, probably. Long answer, the government has had a complicated history trying to address the education gap. There was the Bush administration's No Child Left Behind Act, which was supposed to address the learning disparities in low-income and marginalized communities, but placed a mandate on these already under-resourced schools to overemphasize standardized testing and reporting that 1, they weren't even funding, and 2, took the actual learning out of the equation because it was all about testing. Head Start? Well, I think we all think it was a nice idea. Just could have been done better. Chronically underfunded, long wait lists, inefficient use of resources, problems with staffing, the whole 9. And don't get me started on teacher salaries in general. The public school system been left them out to dry, which is why some people are turning to charter schools, but they too have their issues. Chief amongst them, the weeding out processes that take place in many instances, because not everybody has a lottery system. So institutions like these sometimes give talented 10th vibes, havens for the best of us to get the best education to hopefully give us the best and brightest futures. Now, W.E.B. Du Bois and his light-skinned friends proposed that in 1903, and I'm just trying to figure out how long it was supposed to take for the rest of us, the other 90%, to get some of that action too. Now see, I was a nerd in school, so I wasn't the biggest fan of Booker T. Washington's side of that debate. You know that Black people should focus on vocational skills to pull themselves up by their bootstraps economically. But hey, we have seen an uptick in folks making careers for themselves sans college degree and turning out just fine. Shoot. With the way the Department of Education is going outside, we might need to learn a skill or two just to stay afloat. But to dive further into this topic, we decided to ask the 2 groups that are most intimately involved. Students spend 8 hours a day with their teachers. Let's see what they have to say right here, right now, on the People's Brief. It's no secret that America's educational system is lacking. Thanks to low prioritization from our government and an ever-pervasive sentiment of who needs it from a large part of the population, the onus of receiving a quality education has been placed on Americans. And these days, a quality education means shelling out the big bucks, leaving those of us without money to spare to deal with underfunded, dwindling public school systems, and the pandemic, of course, only serve to make a bad problem worse. So, let's take a look at a real-world situation that illuminates the problem through a classic case of If Little Tommy. So, little Tommy is 12 years old. He lives with his mother, 2 younger brothers, his older sister, as well as his grandmother. His mother is a registered nurse who works 36 to 40 hours a week, and his grandmother is retired and enjoys hosting events with her church group throughout the week. Tommy enjoys playing baseball, and his brothers and sister also have their own personal outlets to express their creativity. Tommy is extra creative, as testing showed that he is neurodivergent, has a dash of ADHD, and learns differently than other children. His favorite part about school is his coding class and his best friends, twins, Jada and Jamal. So class, if little Tommy was in the 2nd grade when the pandemic hit, a time when 1, his family only had tablets for games, 1 desktop and his big sister's laptop with spotty Wi-Fi. 2, his mother was stretched thin for work hours caring for COVID patients. 3, his teachers had little tools to meet the moment and ensure his learning went uninterrupted. And 4, his school system began requiring students to pass classes in effort not to stunt their educational journey. So how do you think that these variables could have impacted little Tommy's educational journey anyway? Who wants to go first?
With number 4 being his school system began requiring students to pass, I think that would definitely maybe impacted how he thought about how classes actually were supposed to work. It maybe impacted how he perceived what he was actually being taught. Meaning if he gathered information differently than others, differently than most students, if he gathered information, okay, I'm hearing this, but I'm not taking this in. I don't really know what a teacher is saying, but I know I need to pass the class. Is he gonna cheat? Is he gonna look up the answers? Is he going to all these different things in order to pass? So it would be more difficult for him to actually pass the class as a requirement.
He could also fall behind with his teachers not being prepared for the moment, and him not learning the same way other students. He may need extra care, and so with all that, he may fall back behind the rest of his peers and students, and feel some type of way about him, his friends being higher than what he is.
His performance in comparison to theirs.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And his confidence might go down too.
Okay.
Definitely, he, considering he's it's COVID and whatnot, he needs people to talk to too, and considering he has younger siblings, he probably can't bond with them as much, and his mother working too, so and considering that he's neurodivergent, he's not really getting the proper care that he needs after school too, so.
He doesn't have a strong enough support system to actually help him grow. If he doesn't have a strong enough support system in the 2nd grade, how is that going to reflect when he goes 3rd grade, 5th grade, okay, now middle school, okay, now high school? He might learn how to, I guess, in a way, fend for himself in school because he was never given the tools and resources that he was supposed to have as a younger child.
I'm glad you brought that up. So from the variables we have going on with little Tommy, does it look like it's necessarily a money problem or just all of the variables together?
I think it's all of the variables together.
Okay. So meaning this doesn't just affect low-income students. It affects people who just don't really have the infrastructure at home to support that learning process.
Well, if there's only one person in the entire family who's the sole money source for the entire household, it could also be, it might cost money to hire a tutor to come in. Granted, it's COVID, but it might cost more money to bring a tutor in, to buy an extra laptop, things like that.
Okay.
So it could be a money problem, but also couldn't, depending on resources again.
And what did you guys miss socially? We see Tommy, he likes to play baseball, he likes his coding class, and his best friend, I don't know if you noticed, Jada and Jamal are twins, which means they're together, and he's by himself. So what did you guys think you missed socially? Any of you guys play sports?
Yeah.
What was, I coached volleyball during this time, so what was trying to get back to playing with your teammates? What type of things that they have you guys doing and stuff like that?
It's I'm a soccer and basketball player. although our coach like send us like certain workouts he wants to do, it's still like you getting like, do I really feel like doing this right now? Like it's, and then from like a social standpoint with sports, like that was really the way I connected with people, like through sports. Most of my friends through sports. So I like lost certain connections with certain friends I've had since I was younger because I wasn't in that space anymore.
Right. And I know socially for me, like since I couldn't see anyone in real life, I was it so online, and that became a very toxic for me. Honestly, it really did, because like I found myself trying to fit how people acted online, and I indulged myself into that. And now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, I made the internet my entire personality because that's all I could do.
And did you guys feel any intentional efforts once you got back into school to return to a new normal? Like what were your teachers doing and saying? What activities? Were there any like additional, were they providing additional resources or exercises to try to get y'all back on track?
No.
Okay.
I know before COVID, I was always doing paperwork. I was always actually writing essays on paper. When I got into high school, because 9th grade was when COVID, like, we were safe. Like, we didn't have to wear masks. When I got into high school, everything I had to do was on the computer. I didn't have to write anything no more. So it's like I was still in that environment of online. Just, I'm with people, but I'm still working online.
They tried to do like study halls. Like they would give us an hour to catch up, and they implemented all these new testing things and it was, I remember returning, it was very overwhelming because I was like, where did all this come from? I thought we were doing good, whatever. But I wouldn't say I really learned anything from those resources either.
So what do you think his performance levels are like? Because if he was in 2nd grade then, he's in 7th grade now. What level is he reading at? What math is he still probably skilled at? Like what subjects make sense to him and what don't?
He might be still on that same level because like during COVID, right, from my personal experience and from my friends' personal experience as well, we wasn't learning. Like just like how he said before, we wasn't learning anything. Like we was so me personally, I had my personal laptop right here, but my TV was right behind it. So I would just be playing video games like while the teacher was talking. I wasn't learning anything. So like also with that too, if I'm not learning anything and I don't understand the work, I'm gonna resort to cheating. And a lot of other people, they did the same thing.
I was in first class, sleep. Call from my mom. Teacher said you sleep. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try to wake up, try to focus. But you're just sitting there, most of the times on my bed, just looking at a computer. You going with your blanket right there, you gonna fall asleep. And then getting, well, like 9th grade, I was like, cause COVID hit me 6th through 7th grade, and then we came back 8th grade year. There was stuff I was learning or we were expected to know in 9th grade. I didn't know it because during virtual class, I would go to sleep.
And also, like, since little Tommy, he was in 2nd grade, I feel like elementary school is when you learn all of the basic skills. You learn how to be a person, you learn regular math skills. And middle school is when you kind of develop them more, but what is there to develop? You've been going, it's nothing to develop right there. So it's just a big detriment to little Tommy.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because if little Tommy was in 2nd grade at a time he was supposed to be learning a lot of life skills and things to set him up on the right track, not just for the rest of school, but for the rest of his life, how do you think adults who were COVID kids are going to be moving about? Like, how prepared are they going to be to take on certain roles, or will the workforce change because certain people only qualify to do a certain kind of thing? Like, what do you think about, and you said he might be still reading on the same level, a less literate working class, like?
They may be unprepared for certain situations.
I definitely think he would be less prepared for a lot of situations, especially socially. Like if he's in a room full of people, he's probably gonna be on his phone 24/7. Like not talking, not interacting. What does that do to you? Like, what does that do to your social skills, but also like your psyche? Like you feel like you alone, feel like you can't bond with nobody.
Struggling to read social cues.
Imagine he was in like a senior, COVID hit, you don't know how to pay taxes, you don't know how to do nothing, so you're really depending on your parents way more than the regular adult is.
A word I feel like you guys are talking around but haven't named is critical thinking. And so you all know, I believe you all have an idea of what's going on politically and how there are even more attacks on education. And we already have a class of kids who aren't reading on the proper level, who have less resources because books are being taken out of school and things like that. So what do you think might be the consequences of a less literate and also a less literate working class that also doesn't have as strong an ability to critically think when you got all of this media, all of these actions taking place, whether it's an executive order, whatever, what have you? Are they engaging? Are they letting things happen?
We're getting really close to the age where we're gonna start voting soon. Like, yeah, you're gonna start voting soon, and it's kind of like, if you don't know what's going on, you're not gonna know who to vote for, you're not gonna know who's really there to help you or not. You're just gonna go off what the other person said without really looking deep into it. So it really, like, it's going to affect generations and generations if we keep voting and not knowing what we're voting for.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna be machines. It's designed that way too, obviously, because, like, I always say this, but like, if you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of power. So like, the more that you know about yourself, and the more that you know about your environment, the more things that you can do to better yourself and better that environment as well. So like, if they don't have that, especially when they're adults, young adults too, that still have fire and that fight in them, they're just gonna be workers. They're just gonna be dolls.
I know how I navigate, because my mommy, she kind of taught me at a really young age, nothing's going to be handed to you for free. You have to work for the things you want. It's just not going to come to you. So that's how I've been navigating my life, just working hard for the things I want. And I've been pushing to see a result. And I know I'm going to fail sometimes. Everyone fails. But sometimes you want failure, because now you know what to do and what not to do. And that's really how I've been helping myself a lot.
There are a lot of creators like myself. I came from social media, educating people, young Gen Zers, younger millennials who are taking it upon themselves to make sure you guys get the information that is quite literally being taken away from you and hidden from you. And I just think that points to us becoming a society that doesn't depend on government structures or systems anymore to support one another. We're making sure we have what we need by doing things just out of the kindness of our heart, like out of being impassioned to do that. So I wouldn't say all hope is lost. It's just gonna look different the way we do it moving forward. Thank y'all so much for your time. This was great. And we are back with the People's Brief. Now, Lil Tommy is a story all of us know a little bit too well at this point in this country. But what we often don't hear about is the system under which Lil Tommy is learning. And I mean, there are tons of models for what education can look like. There's public school, there's charter schools, Montessori schools. The list goes on, but what does any of this look like in practice when you take a look under the hood? And what about the teachers involved? I was once a classroom educator, but times have changed since COVID. So I wanted to explore what education looks like from a teacher's perspective in 2025. And to help me do that, I invited my close personal friend, Mr. Alfred Shivy Brooks, to the studio. He's not new to this, he's true to this, with over 10 years of experience in the classroom, as well as serving as a current member of the Atlanta Public School Board. Shivy, welcome to the show.
Hey. Honor to be with you.
Thank you for coming.
Yes.
So in addition to being an educator and being on the public school board, you're also a creator like myself. Yeah. You actually run a series called Rules of Engagement, which according to you and your co-host, redefines education, student engagement, and community connection. Can you tell us why you started that series?
Yeah, so the show was founded by my good friend, Principal Eamon Ra from Compton. He reached out actually first to my two co-hosts, Principal Mo, who's from Baltimore, and my other co-host, Alexia Pendleton, who is from New Jersey. And then he called me up and he said, listen, we're putting this show together, would love you to be a part of it. Gratefully for me is that I knew both of them, knew how terrific they were. It was an easy yes. And then called up my boy, CJ Reynolds, who's originally from Philadelphia. He was a hip hop teacher in Philadelphia. Now he's out there in New Mexico teaching. He joined in, and so we've got 4 teachers from different corners of America who came together to really talk about the issues that are pressing from the perspective of actual educators. One of the biggest gripes for us is that we see so many conversations about education without educators at the table. And so we decided we were going to build our own table and center the voices of actual educators to talk about the topics that matter to us.
Speaking of topics that matter, the public school system has been failing not just Black kids, but all kids in numerous ways for a long time. And the pandemic specifically stunted the growth in the area of literacy for kids across the globe. Of course, Black kids get the short end of the stick, are disproportionately affected by all the factors that go into that. And so I do wonder, from your experience in community with other teachers, there's a lot of conversation debating the use or efficacy of charter schools versus public schools because public schools haven't been able to perform to a certain standard. But there's so much that goes into the mix of those. But from the inside, do you see either of those models meeting this need better than the other?
Yeah. The reality is the outcomes are mixed. So you have some charter schools that do perform well, and kids are getting good outcomes. And then you have some charter schools many charter schools that are not outperforming your traditional schools. So I think a lot of us get caught up in the aesthetics and the good branding of many of the charter schools and not necessarily looking at what the outcomes are at those schools. To that point, I personally believe that our public schools are in a very different position than they were before. It used to be, if you bought a home in a certain neighborhood, you knew you were zoned to a specific school and schools could depend on those kids attending the school. But now with so much choice, you really have to compete with marketing your schools better. You really have to compete with better programming. You have to do more than just school nowadays to be successful. There's a consequence. When you have a high concentration of charter schools, specifically in a public school setting, specifically in under-resourced areas, you end up seeing underutilization in many of our neighborhood schools, which then results in conversations about consolidations and school closures, which then also has an impact on our home values. So it actually becomes like one of the biggest thefts of home ownership wealth by us just putting out charter schools everywhere and oversaturating and divesting from our traditional schools. Now, on the other side, you have some that are performing very well, who are doing great things and who are offering something very different than you might have in some of your traditional schools. And I think there's a space for that. My personal feeling is I'm pro good schools. If you're serving our kids and you're serving our kids well, to me, those are the schools that should be resourced. Those are the schools that should be held up. Part of the issue we do have with our charters is that when they do underperform, we're not having enough conversation about accountability and what that looks like.
You made an interesting point earlier about how these things lead to gentrification, and we don't really understand how we might be adding to the problem. So can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, the facts are we have our own hand to play. When we look at gentrification, when we choose to not be invested in our neighborhood schools, when we choose to tell our kids, hey, get good grades in school, get a scholarship, go to college, get a good job, and leave. We have to change the culture of brain drain that we have normalized in our community. And that's gonna be the only way we're gonna be able to combat gentrification. It's the reason why every time there is development, there's also displacement. We have to be able to keep pace with this. And what that looks like for me is us saying, yes, my child will go to the neighborhood school. Yes, not only will I send my child to the neighborhood school, but I'm gonna be invested in making sure that school is more resourced than it was. I'm gonna join the booster team. I'm gonna join the PTA or the PTO or the GO team or whatever it is. It is that parental involvement. Now, it's not lost on me that the ability for some parents to be more involved than others is a product of privilege, right? But at some point, some of us have to realize that we've earned some privilege, we've earned some autonomy with our time, and that's gonna look like us putting investments into our schools in different ways so we can get what we're looking for.
I have to interject.
Yeah.
For all the parents listening, especially the ones who have earned their privilege and have to be aware of their privilege, I just have to say, even if you are investing your time, your energy in your child's school and making sure they have the best opportunities, it is not you against the teachers.
That's right.
It is not you against the coaches. It is not you against the principals.
Yep.
We have to work together.
Yep.
And if you don't work these 16-hour shifts teachers work, and I say that because we would never take, I'm sorry, we couldn't not take our work home.
Right.
And more often than not only could we not take our work home, we could not take our students home with us. I say all that to say, y'all, be nice to your educators, and work in tandem with them and be in partnership. Stop. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Yeah.
So let's move on before
I don't know when we got to the place that we have the adversarial relationship between parents and educators that we see today. If my teacher called my mom and said he's talking too much, there was no conversation about, well, what are you doing that's causing him to do that? Why are you not? That didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think we got to heal that.
For sure. I think it's counterproductive, and it doesn't allow the student to feel like everybody is on their side. Like, it takes a village, and we just got to start acting like more of a village. Yeah, I don't know, you drew up some wounds with that one. Anywho, let's jump to standardized testings. I think that's something that we don't get to talk about as much, but we pretty much know as a community is a problem. Standardized testing was not designed with not even just our students, but just students who learn differently in mind. And I wonder, is there any headway being made in that regard?
Yeah, no, I'm going to be honest with you. In America, we have this thought process that we're going to be able to test our way to excellence. And that's just absolutely not how this works. As you know it as an educator, we were told when we're making our lesson plans, we're making our activities, we have to differentiate the lesson. And for those that don't know, that means you got to reach all the different learners, the auditory learner, the spatial learner, the tactile learner. You gotta have something for everybody. But then when they need to prove what they know, they're supposed to do so in a standardized way. And so that in itself just doesn't align. To your point, our kids have so many different forms of excellence, so many different forms of genius, that they should be able to use any of those forms to evidence what they know, and that's not what testing does. We have seen in some districts, some places, a bigger focus on project-based learning, where students are more, pushed to actually do and create than just fill in bubbles. And in my opinion, that's the direction we need to move in. But that is going to require states to get on board. That's going to require the federal government to get on board, because even on a local level, if you want to move in a different direction, you're still mandated by the state to do certain things. And so you don't get to get away from it.
What do you have to say to educators who do have a passion for doing this work but might not feel like the pay matches with the demand, or not even the demands of the classroom, but the demands of life? Rent, tariffs.
Well, they say nationally the average salary for a teacher is something like, starting salary is like $55,000 or something to that effect. And in the Southeast, even worse.
When I started, it was $39,000 with my master's degree.
I think I made $27,000 my first year teaching. I think I made 27. Somebody just made a sound in the background that I felt in my heart. But here goes the part. So when I was campaigning to get on school board in 2023, I campaigned on getting our teachers' starting salary in Atlanta to $65,000 within the next 3 years. Within 5 months of being on the board, we were able to get the starting salary to $63,000 from $52,000. So you're talking about almost an extra $1,000 in the pocket of a teacher every single month, and we were able to make that decision right away. And for me, that makes me proud, because now in the metro Atlanta area, Atlanta teachers are paid higher than everybody else. The result of that was we started this school year with 0 teacher vacancies. So across America, we know there's a teacher shortage, right? And I always say there's no such thing as a teacher shortage, there's a teacher pay shortage. And that's the real issue. It's the same reason why Black men are less than 1.6% of all teachers. How can I be the man of the house, the breadwinner of the house on a teacher salary, right? And so there's something that has to be done about that. I'm a firm believer that teachers are underpaid because America doesn't value the work of women. It's a woman-dominated field. If the majority of my coworkers, the majority of the people in my field look like me, we'd be making a lot more money.
So hey y'all, teaching is no joke. Y'all be tired of your own kids and then send them to people like Shivy as if they're supposed to be superhuman for your little Tommy's issues. But don't move. We'll be right back with more here on The People's Brief. And we're back with The People's Brief. I'm your host, Lene Vini, and for this segment, we've invited educator and social media personality, QB the Don, to help me out. And this is your Schoolhouse Update. Trump is back, and so are his signature policies, or lack thereof. In April of 2025, he signed an executive order called Reinstating Common Sense School Discipline Policies. Because, you know, common sense and Trump go hand in hand. Said nobody ever with common sense. Historically, Trump's only common sense policy is to just do what I say or you're fired.
After trying to recover from COVID-19, Trump's other policy seems to be no education for a slower future. With reading scores across the United States causing concerns, it seems like Trump's administration lack a concern for education, at least not kids with no teachers, no books, and just vibes. Even a survey conducted by Nielsen and publisher HarperCollins shows a steep decline in the number of parents reading to their children. In 2012, 64% of 0 to 4-year-olds were being read to aloud. Now we're down to 41%. PSA, if your babies can't read the menu at McDonald's, they can't pass the reading test either. And just because you can repeat McChicken, don't mean you can read McChicken.
Hello? Recently, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended the firing of Librarian of Congress Carla Hayden, stating that there were some quite concerning things that she had done at the Library of Congress in pursuit of DEI and putting inappropriate books in the library for children. Books being banned include Julianne Moore's Freckle-Faced Strawberry. I guess white women with a little bit of color can't do it for them either. Amber Rose, you might want to watch out, girl.
Lene, girl, come look at this.
Just pass you. That's not gonna help you in the long run. You're gonna have to do math outside of school every day. Yes, you are. Okay, so let me ask you something. You at the grocery store, $25, right? It's 50% off. How much you gotta pay?
15.
$25? Okay. Oh, yeah, you go in there and pay $15. You're gonna get ran off on every time. That's what I'm saying. You gotta do math every day. It's not 15.
My pay is 5.
5 or 25, $2. Okay, yeah. You're gonna get ran off on every day. This is why it's so important for you to go sit down and do that Khan Academy.
No, I'm not gonna have to calculate it because
Why won't you have to calculate it?
when I go to the register,
Yeah, but what if the register is just like you, wrong? Now you paying more money than what you're supposed to, right? You know, machines can like go down, fail, right?
yeah.
Okay, heard. Next question. Do you need to graduate? You might need to graduate. So you got a job. You work $10. You get $10 an hour, right? You work for 8 hours that day, 40 hours in a week. Exactly my point. So you asked $2,500. $2,500. You lost a lot of money that week. You lost a lot of money that week if you got paid $2,500. It was 30. You was supposed to get $3,200 on your paycheck, and you only got $2,500 because you thought you was only supposed to make $2,500. You know why? Because you just asked me to pass you during Algebra 1, and you will never have to do math again in your life. Imagine losing $700 every paycheck. That's $1,400 every month.
You can't do nothing with that but pay your bills.
You can't do nothing with $1,400. Is everybody okay in here? I just don't know what's
You
going on.
can, but
Did he just?
Child, 'tis the season to be lying to kids, and I just can't do it. Post-pandemic grade inflation policies across the country have allegedly left some students wondering, did I pass? Or is this teacher ready to get rid of my ass? While other students are literally asking just to be passed. According to recent reports, the teachers are in fact ready to get rid of their asses. And many school districts have banned teachers from giving out grades lower than a 60. Which is the score they're gonna get on them SATs if we don't do something.
My goodness gracious. President Trump has also decided to all but abolish the Department of Education. Wow, he really is going for that trifecta of American greatness, abolishing rights left and right for the black people, the gays, the women's, and now education. Yeah, it seems like making America great again means abolishing everything except slavery, of course. That one's still a hard no. His plan is to leave education up to the states, to which the Democratic states have responded, go to hell. And the Republican states have quickly responded, if we do, we're taking your education with us. We started the conversation this episode talking about the pandemic when it hit in 2020. And back then, only 1.3% of public school teachers were black men. So we are very grateful for the gaps that you are covering and even for giving the students the real when they need it. And I'm so glad you didn't let the people push you out when they tried to fire you, because somebody needs to say the things, and I'm glad you said it. We appreciate you. I'm Lene.
And I'm QB.
And this has been your Schoolhouse Update. So yeah, these babies can't read, but guess what? They not the only ones. In the United States, roughly 1 in 5 adults struggle with reading and comprehension. And whereas most developed countries have a literacy rate of 96% or higher, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, we sitting at a not so pretty 79%. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I can tell. How else could a population walk head first into the situation we find ourselves in other than being severely unlearned? Low literacy isn't just about being unable to recognize letters and words on a page. It's about being unable to make inferences, compare and contrast, think critically, make well-informed decisions. And most importantly, y'all, it's trapping our babies. Parental involvement serves as one of the largest predictors of early literacy achievement. The children of parents with low literacy levels have a 72% chance of being at the lowest levels of literacy when they become adults. And despite what our community is being fed, low literacy, and therefore low education, directly correlates with higher unemployment, reduced income, higher incarceration rates, and poor health outcomes. Anti-intellectualism may make you feel good, but it's getting us nowhere. True enough, Black people face barriers and disparities that impede on our access to quality education. But make no mistake, your pathway to financial success doesn't open up without it. 43% of adults with low literacy live in poverty. 1/3 of adults with low literacy are unemployed. And I hate to say this, and I hope I don't sound ridiculous, but the narrative that you don't need school is simply not true. In fact, this country's low literacy rate is literally costing us money. A study commissioned by the Gallup Foundation estimated that raising every American adult's literacy rate to just a 6th grade reading level would generate an additional $2.2 trillion a year. Huh? Oh, you can hear me now? You listening? And what makes it all the more serious, as we're seeing today, an uninformed citizenship is simply just dangerous. It leaves us wide open to being taken advantage of and manipulated right into an authoritarian regime. Authoritarianism loves people who cannot think for themselves. Reading and education promotes critical thinking, independent thought, and respect for diversity, all of which challenges the brain-dead obedience and deference that authoritarianism demands. So it's no wonder why Trump and his Goonies' first order of business was to ban books, eliminate anything championing diversity, defund AP courses and departments, and literally eradicate the Department of Education. So it's not a youth problem. It's not even a Black people problem. It's an everybody problem. So never miss a beat on the People's Brief. I'll be back next week with more time.